Hello YouTube, this is Eli, the OBD Tech. This video is going to be based on how to determine a potential dirty mass airflow sensor on a Ford vehicle. I'm still working on this 2000 Ford vehicle that I repaired on. I replaced actually the intake manifold gaskets, in which I showed you guys how to use mode 6 to verify a potential misfire. Actually a Pacific cylinder misfire. Well, on this vehicle, after doing the repairs and I test drove it, there was moments where I felt like a slight hesitation. I was thinking maybe a potential dirty mass airflow sensor. So I currently have 5 parameters here. I have the load percentage, long-term fuel term on bank 1, and long-term fuel term on bank 2, RPM, and mass airflow sensor, grams per second. The load percentage, it's specs for this vehicle. They're actually between 27 and 35 at hot idle. We have 22.7. Long-term fuel trims at idle, there should be between plus or minus 20%, which they are. RPMs also within specs, between I believe it's 700 and between 700 and 800, which shows that it's within spec. And finally, our mass airflow sensor, grams per second, currently it's 5.14. Our specs during hot idle should be between 4.8 and 6.0. It's at 5.09, which is good. But where I actually felt the hesitation was during a engine load, during a higher RPM. So I'm gonna actually raise the RPM to 2500, which is here on specs. At 2500, our mass airflow sensor grams per second should be between 18.1 and 22. Our load should be between 27 and 20 and 27. And what else? That's pretty much it. So I'm going to raise the RPM to 2500 and perform this test. And let's watch our mass airflow sensor and our load percentage. Our long-term fuel term on bank 2 is currently showing negative 0.78, which is still within spec. But like I said, I'm going to perform this 2500 RPM test, and let's watch our load and our mass airflow sensor. Alright. So I'm at 1300 RPM. I'm going to keep it at 25, a steady 25 RPM. Alright, so at 2500 RPM, our load percentage is at 33.3. Spec shows between 20 and 27. Our mass airflow sensor at 2500, it shows 22.09. Our spec at 2500 is 18.1 and 22 grams per second, which is between spec. Our mass airflow sensor. For our load is load percentage is it's a little bit high. Our long-term fuel trims are within spec, which are good. But for some reason, I just felt a slight hesitation while driving the vehicle. I'm going to perform a visual inspection on the mass airflow sensor, because I still believe that the mass airflow sensor it's contaminated somehow, but it's not really affecting it so much. But I did feel like a slight hesitation. Even during a snap throttle, I do feel it. So I'm gonna snap the throttle. It just has a little slight hesitation on it. But our mass airflow sensor, our grams per second, it does show within spec. So the next thing I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to do a visual inspection on the mass airflow sensor and see if it's dirty or not. Alright guys, so this is a mass airflow sensor. It is finally out of the vehicle. I'm performing a visual inspection. Just by doing this visual inspection, I do see that the resistor, the one in the rear, does show signs of dirtiness. You know, it is contaminated compared to the one in the front. The front one does look to be much cleaner. So I'm pretty sure this is the reason I feel that slight hesitation during a snap throttle. Just for the fact that the one in the rear does show signs of dirtiness. So I guess the next thing I'll do is clean both resistors, and then I'll show you guys, once I clean it and compare them, and then I'll put it back into the vehicle, and then I'll show you guys back into the scan tool and show you guys those parameters that I showed earlier. But I'm pretty sure this is the reason. We have a slight dirty mass airflow sensor that's causing this slight hesitation. Not always, but I there's times where I do feel that that slight hesitation, and I'm pretty sure this is the reason why. Alright guys, so I'm gonna clean it and then show you guys once it's clean. Alright guys, so this is after cleaning the mass airflow sensor, both resistors. As you can see, both of them look clean now. They're both pretty much the same color now. I'm gonna try to zoom in a little bit. So this is with like I said, I use a mass airflow sensor spray cleaner to clean both of them. So after cleaning them, they're both clean now. So the next step is to put it back to the vehicle and perform those parameter checks on the scan tool. Alright guys, so this is with the mass airflow sensor back in the vehicle, and after being cleaned, I'm currently looking at the current values to the before cleaning values. I do see some type of improvement. For example, on the load percentage, it's currently sitting at 25.5%. Before, it was sitting at 22-23. So that's like a 2% improvement. I said 2 or 3% improvement. Our long-term fuel trims, they're currently sitting at 7%. Before, they were sitting nearly at 0%. Our mass airflow sensor is currently sitting between 5.3, 5.2. Before, it was sitting at 5.0 and 5.2. So that's a little slight improvement too. So just by looking at these numbers, guys, I do see that before doing the cleaning, that the mass airflow sensor was giving a false reading to the computer. It was basically telling the computer that our long-term fuel trims were nearly at 0%. So after cleaning the sensor, our long-term fuel trims, they did increase to 7%. To me, these numbers are basically, they're normal. Ideally for a vehicle that's 16 years old, being at 7% comparing to 0%, they're more likely to be at a higher range instead of 0%. Since the engine, it's like I said, it's almost 16 years old, and on these Ford vehicles, our long-term fuel range, they're actually, it's between plus or minus 20%, which is still damn good. So I guess the next step I'll do, guys, I'm gonna increase the RPM to 2500, and let's watch our long-term fuel trims. A good mass airflow sensor with the higher RPM, actually our long-term fuel trims at a higher RPM, they tend to decrease to almost nearly 0%. So for example, when there's a problem with the mass airflow sensor or a problem with the fuel delivery, our long-term fuel trims, if you see long-term fuel trims that tend to increase instead of decreasing at a higher RPM, that just gives you an indication that there's a fuel delivery or a mass airflow sensor problem. So in this case, we're starting off at 7% on both banks. I'm going to climb the RPM to 2500, and these long-term fuel trims, they should go nearly 0%, or even by them dropping, decreasing, that shows that this vehicle, this mass airflow sensor is actually it's reporting to the computer good values. So here we go. So as you can see, our long-term fuel trims, they did drop from 7 to 3 and 1%. So at 2,500 RPM, our fuel trims are sitting between 3 and 1. Actually, no, they're actually sitting at 2%. So this is with the clean mass airflow sensor. It's actually reporting good numbers now. Before I remember that, before cleaning the mass airflow sensor, when I performed this test at 2,500 RPM, our long-term fuel trims, they did start at 0, but as I climbed the RPM to 2,500, our long-term fuel trims, they actually did jump to about 3%. So like I said, that that's an indication when the long-term fuel trims tend to increase. That's just that just shows you that there's a potential problem, either a fuel delivery or a mass airflow sensor problem. In this case, we did have a partial dirty mass airflow sensor on one of the hot resistors. So after cleaning it, our long-term fuel trims, they did improve. They did increase to 7%, which is, to me, it's still good no matter what. This is a 16-year-old engine, but then being at 0%, to me, that's indication that there's a problem. In this case, like we said, it was a partial dirty mass airflow sensor, which was reporting a false reading to the computer. Alright guys, so hopefully this video helps to diagnose a Ford vehicle, to determine a potential fuel delivery or a dirty mass airflow sensor, just by looking at your load percentage, your long-term fuel trims. You could, in this case, you could also use your short-term fuel trims, but I tend to always look at the long-term fuel trims, and also look at your mass airflow sensor, grams per second. Currently at hot idle, these numbers are within spec. Even before cleaning the sensor, those numbers were still within spec, but just the numbers that were not properly accurate, I'll say it was just the long-term fuel trims. That was actually the improvement after cleaning the mass airflow sensor. They did increase instead of reading nearly 0%, which to me was not ideal for an engine that's almost 16 years old. So hopefully this vehicle helps you guys. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like.